Should we get this started?
Let's do it.
I feel like we should get this started.
I want to talk some Waterdeep.
So yeah, we're going to talk some Waterdeep today. So thanks everybody for hanging out with us in the chat while we're kind of warming up and getting ready. So as many of you may know or may not know, we finished Tomb of Annihilation 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, last week was the postmortem.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, God. So 2 weeks ago, man, it was a wild ride. So it was a little over a year-long campaign, and we finished it. We had some good things, but we're not going to talk about that. If you want to go see our postmortem, see the episodes, they're all on YouTube.
Yep.
Podcast format, wherever you want. You can search for Dad Bod Dnd. Make sure it's the N and not the ampersand.
Hey, I will say, weekly we're going to have character highlight videos coming out. So far, Vinny Bloodgood, Devin's character, was released on Wednesday. You can check that out. It's all the highlights from that character. I think Binks, my character, will be next, and then we got Victon, and then we'll end with Willow, and then if I get my act together, we'll have a DM highlight too. Time is a fading thing.
That's tough.
Very finite.
Because it's not me that does it; it's you guys. You guys are the stars of the show. So go ahead and check that out. We have some one shots on there too. We have some random stuff that's called the podcast. They're all on YouTube podcast format. There's some VODs out there that are available. If you want to go back and watch it, I do suggest the YouTube format because Chris does a very good job editing, takes out some of the pauses that we have, takes out some of the rules checking that we have. So, great way.
Yeah.
So, we do have Twitter, Instagram, DadBodDnd. You check us out anywhere there. We are sponsored by Skull Splitter, so they did just start a Kickstarter that has already met its second tier. Day 2. Early birds haven't even finished yet, and they've already met second tier. So they're going for the 16,000, which is they're so close to already. Last I checked, they weren't there. They did just meet the 11,000 goal. So go check that out. If you want a nice set of dice, nice metal dice, you can use the link down below and use the promo code DadBod for 10% off your first purchase. So, again, we have Discord, too, which is linked down there if you want. Come hang out with us. We're pretty active every day. We talk about D&D. We talk about movies. We talk about, whatever you want.
Anything and everything.
Next week is going to be a one-shot ran by Devin, so we're not ready to hit into Waterdeep yet. Devin will be running Weeby Gerblins, and where all of us play is goblins. So that'll be fun. Be sure to check that out. Then the following week, 3/15, come back here if you want to catch Waterdeep. That'll be our first session. Tonight's going to be session 0. So without further ado, let's get into it, right? Does anybody have anything they want to start with before we jump in?
Probably just to clear the air of Tomb of Annihilation. I think our entire party is super excited to be out of the tomb and to be doing another module. So I think we're all pretty jazzed to be starting a new one.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it felt sad leaving the characters behind, but it's like it's springtime, and you get some new life coming in, and I'm so excited to hop into the skin of a different character. So looking forward.
It's for sure rough too, and we played that for so long that it'll be nice. It'll be that new that we get.
Yeah.
And also starting over at level 1 is going to be tough. I got to make sure not to kill you guys.
I'm not looking forward to that.
So
I used to be able to do cool stuff.
I can hit you.
Swing my sword.
I might have a spell or two. But all right, so what we're going to do tonight, we're going to go over all of the characters' backstories, and we're going to break out into different groups for this. So in a few minutes, we'll break out to individual sessions, and we'll kind of go over backstories. And then we'll give a quick Waterdeep city overview, which will be kind of fun, so we get a little bit of understanding. And then we'll go over the module for a little bit, too. You guys ready to break into our... Anything you guys want to say before we break into sessions here?
I got nothing.
Nope, let's do this.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so let's go ahead and... It's going to be... We are here right now.
Hey. I mean, if I'm not fucking something up, it's not us, okay?
It wouldn't be Dad Bod Dnd if we didn't have something messed up.
Yeah. Specifically with me.
everybody who may be in the chat. Welcome to Dad Bod Dnd. We're doing a special episode for Kylie's session 0 real quick. Kylie, tell me a little bit about your Waterdeep character.
Makani Wyndfell is a cleric. Her mom is a cleric who works for the richer people who own and bet on gladiators. And her mom is very sought after. She's a very established, kind of famous cleric because of her healing abilities. Makani has healing abilities, but she's a Tempest cleric. So she also has like environment abilities, I guess I should say. Do you want me to get into her whole background? Like, how much of it do you want me to get into?
Whatever. So, yeah, this would be a perfect time for your character backstory. Whatever you want to let the audience know, and then whatever you want to have come out organically, just leave that to yourself.
Okay. When she was in her early 20s, they were at the gladiator pits. She was very, very close to her mom. Her dad wasn't in the picture, and her mom had her help start taking a bigger role in curing and helping heal these gladiators. And then one night her mom sent her off and to go help heal another gladiator. I'm mumbling because I was not ready for this. Anyways, to heal another gladiator. When she came back, her mother was murdered, and her mother tried to hide some of her extra cleric abilities because her mother didn't want her to become a gladiator, but all her abilities kind of exploded within her, I guess you could say, and she kind of blew up, essentially, the apartment complex that they were living in, and she took off, and she's now on a search to find a way to try to bring her mother back to life.
Okay. So what is the physical appearance of Makani?
She can change her appearance. She's an Eldrin. Am I saying that correctly? Eladrin cleric. So she can change it based on the seasons. Right now, she has very like gray colored hair. She is matching her appearance to the weather. She has gray hair, very like whitish colored skin right now, very soft gray freckles, light blue eyes. She wears a lot of jewelry because her mom did have a lot of riches. So she wears a lot of jewelry. Her clothes are practical, but still obviously very nice.
What brings Makani to Waterdeep?
She really is lost right now and trying to find a way to heal her mom. That's her or to bring her mom back to life. She wants to learn more about her cleric abilities. She didn't really have anybody besides her mother who focused on the life domain, to teach her about her abilities. So she's still learning a lot about that. She's still learning a lot about herself. She doesn't really have any leads on what she can do right now to bring her mom back. So she's just wandering in the world lost right now, essentially. And she just happened to come to Waterdeep because it's the biggest city, and she's not sure if she can find a lead there.
Okay, good deal. What traits would define Makani?
She's kind, but it takes her a little while to really trust somebody. She lost a lot of happiness when her mother passed away, and she's searching for it again. But right now, she links her happiness to her mother. She's really focused on her own life right now, so she's not really out to help a lot of people like you would imagine a typical cleric to be.
Okay. And so that may obviously lead into the very next question. What are Makani's flaws?
That she doesn't trust people. Her mom, she believes that there was a hit out on her mom. So she knows that there's a lot of bad in the world. She is kind of naive in the fact that her mom's essentially, like I said before, been paid with a lot of riches. So she's never really been without. She's never had to she has to work for things, but she's never been troubled, essentially, to pay for anything or to find answers that she needed, other than since she's been searching with her mom.
Perfect. What do you want to achieve with this character in the campaign? Like, what are your goals? What do you want to see happen?
Well, without giving too much away, I want to see her evolve and find happiness that's not linked to her mother, find friendships, but also, there's a good chance that she might not find a way to bring back her mom, and kind of find some closure in that.
So what would happen if you couldn't find a way to bring back your mom? How would that change Makani?
Hopefully, well, right at the moment, that's not an option for her. Hopefully she grows enough that she can accept death and accept the past for what it is and lessons her mom's already taught her, and learn to stand on her own feet and become her own person. Sorry, when I think really hard, by the way, I look off into space. I do that at work too, and I can see the screen, and I'm like, oh, I'm looking up at the corner. I feel like this is like an exam to get into college too.
Yeah, you need to deal with it or you're in trouble. So last question for Makani is, what pitfalls do you want to avoid with this character, or to make this character successful from I don't want it to be not from a overall revive your mother quest, but from a just, you think it was a fun character. We've had Willow, who we all know was set up for a one shot and got turned into a long campaign. But what would make Makani a successful, fun character for you?
So I've always played the fun-loving, funny, easygoing character. I kind of want Makani to start out as pretty serious, pretty driven, just not as happy-go-lucky as pretty much every other character I've ever played. So that's going to be a challenge for me starting out. And obviously I do want her to grow, but I don't want to just fall into my habits of role playing where everything's a joke, and not everything's a joke in a bad way, but that's just kind of my character's personalities I've always played. So I want to make sure that I'm not falling into that per se right off the bat when she's still driven on this quest that's pretty serious for her.
I like it. What about long term? So short term, you don't want to fall into the norm. What is your long term goal with this character?
What's my long term goal with this character? I don't know. I haven't really thought about a long term goal for her. I'm excited to kind of see where she goes organically, and for me personally, just to learn more about role playing with her and more about the game.
I like it.
Like it a lot.
So that's really all the questions I had for you. Were there any questions for me in the upcoming Waterdeep campaign?
Did anybody else ask questions?
One thing I will say is the game starts in the Yawning Portal. So think of a reason why you're there. So that is roughly the overview of Waterdeep. Do you have any questions?
I don't think I do right now.
Perfect. So
no questions, sir.
We're going to go ahead and bring it back to everybody. So if you're naked on this stream, please put your shirts on. Travis.
Hello.
It is you and I. So, Travis, what is your character name?
It is Jax Meddlemuck. Jaxyn. So in a bit of an unusual spelling. He goes by Jax normally. But I imagine he won't in the beginning. People will not be aware of that. It's for meeting a whole new group of people.
Okay. So what we do have a nice little picture that was done by our very own Stonefly here in Dad Bod Dnd. But what does your character look like? What are some of the features that define Jax?
He's got some silvery hair. He's a bit of a short fella, about 3'6", but the hair doesn't go quite past his ears, but it's a little on the longer side, but not not like shoulder length. Generally wearing leather, maybe with a blue tunic, brown pants, leather boots, and probably an apron. He's a bit of an alchemist, so he's always working on, different concoctions, and he's capable of like building actual physical objects too. So he carries around a hammer and working gloves with him.
Okay. So why don't you give us a rundown of your backstory? What defines Jax as a person?
He doesn't know much beyond the general life of learning and hard work. After school, he would observe his parents, a blacksmith and an engineer, just do their thing. So he'd always be spending time outside of observing his parents, working with just gadgets he found around the house. Much like a kid today might, well, not today, I guess, but a long time ago would have taken apart like the house phone or something, just to learn how they work. He's always doing that kind of thing. He did well in school, usually around the top of his class. His friend became his rival, and his name is Sindri. And they grew up school and even outside of school before they were of age together. They were friends. They both liked to build things. They would both do competitions and be very competitive with each other. Eventually it got to the point where they were always the top two finishers in any building competition around. But Jax does not do well with losing, even to his friend. And as he got older, he started to lose more and more from societal pressures for getting married and settling down. But he wasn't ready. And with all that weighing on his head, and his constant failure, at least in his own mind, he's leaving town. He's got to go find some new motivation.
How does he feel when he actually leaves town? What regret, excitement?
Mostly excitement. He's always wanting to learn and experience new things, so he is excited to see more of the world. He's never really left his town or his country of Eberron, so he is getting excited about that, but he's nervous about it too, because he doesn't know what he's going to find. He doesn't know if he's going to come across any monsters, things of that nature, so he's not quite used to fighting yet, but he's optimistic.
Tentative.
Yes.
I gotcha. So what brings you to Waterdeep?
He had always heard of a city of splendors, and he's out looking for something new, maybe to help him with his future builds, or maybe to at least get him some money or something. He's always heard of this city of splendors, and he's heading there to see what he can find and hope that it brings him good fortune of some kind.
So what traits really define Jax?
He believes anything worth doing is worth doing right. He tries to be nice, but he can sometimes be rude. He always wants to know how things work, so he's very inquisitive, maybe distractingly so, but he's hoping ultimately to get back home and prove that he is the greatest builder, engineer, tinkerer of them all, like he believes in his own head. He can get a bit jealous too.
So I guess that leads us into the next question. What are some of Jax's flaws?
Yeah, like I said, he's jealous. He doesn't like it when anyone, even his friends, outshine him. So he's all kind of views everyone that's of the same mind as him around him as rivals. And he's never satisfied with what he has. He's always wanting more, and always wanting another trophy or that other blue ribbon or something.
I gotcha. Okay, so what was your thought process behind making Jax? What really drove you to playing Victon as long as you did, which was a melee, paladin? What made you change it up?
It's the fact that I played a paladin and I wanted to do something kind of starkly different from that. I wanted to play somebody a little bit mischievous, somebody I could have a little bit more fun with that wasn't such a serious toned type. I got a little bit of a taste of that in some of our one-shots, and I really enjoyed it, so I kind of ran with that. And the Artificer class just kind of stood out to me when it was pointed out as existing in the first place.
Was there anything that really kind of sparked your creative juices other than that one-shot? I mean, were you just kind of browsing and you're like, hey man, this looks pretty fun?
I wanted something different than Victon. I know I said that, but it's a big hitter for me. He was so serious, and I tend to be fairly serious, so I wanted to get out of that comfort zone, so there's that other personal component to it. And then I found that the gnome class kind of fit that, and then after that we found the artificer class, and then the rock gnome type for the gnome fit that, so it just kind of all melded together. So it was kind of that motivation for giving myself out of my comfort zone, and then just the flow of going through the book and the documentation,
So
finding something I liked.
the difference was what drove you, and then it led you down a path of, okay, I like this. This looks fun. Okay, let's do this. What fits with this? And that's kind of what drove it, right?
Exactly. Yep.
What pitfalls do you need to avoid to make this character successful in your eyes? Now, success can be measured in many different ways. Are you successful in game, or is it a success in your eyes of what you want to achieve, right?
Everything that I want out of this character and even this story is more about me as a playing character as opposed to what I want for Jax himself. I want him to be successful. I want him to be able to get home and wow everybody, or just learn to be happy with his own accomplishments instead of always needing to find that next thing. I had a hard time with Victon remembering to stick to the chaotic good, or the lawful good that I set him for, and the various personality traits. I didn't even have any in the very beginning, and then I built some, and I tried to stick with it, but it was always in the way back in my mind where I was never really considering it until a significant moment happened. So I don't think I was consistent with him. So I want to not fall into that inconsistency. I want to make sure that he is who he is from the beginning to the end, with some personal growth in there. So he's going to hopefully become a better person, or maybe a worse person, depending on what happens with Waterdeep.
Yeah, I was gonna say with Victon, it was we built it for a quick test of, hey, let's come do this little module of, what was it? We ran through a quick tavern and killed some rats, and so Victon kind of, you used that same character in the Tomb of Annihilation.
Yep.
And luckily, you were one of the few that your character, while didn't start with the original party, survived till the very end. Keyword until the very end. And it was I feel like it was a character that really didn't it grew with you from a perspective of the DM. It grew with you, but it wasn't something that you just loved at the start.
Yes, it wasn't. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you feel like that's going to be your, this character, is that going to be Jax for you?
I think it is. I really do. I've actually put a lot more thought into everything in this character. Like you said, we kind of rushed Victon together, and I just liked him. And since I wasn't sure if I was going to keep going, we didn't know how it was going to work out long term, I didn't want to put a whole lot of time in my own character. Plus, I just didn't know enough about how it all worked. Now I do. I've learned a whole ton about characters and how to play them, build them, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be a lot better. I'm going to have a stronger personal attachment, and it's going to be a lot more interesting emotionally, as much as it is just playing through it and having fun with it.
So what does Travis want to achieve with this character? What's like the end goal for you with Jax? What would make you think that you are, or what kind of growth do you want in this campaign?
As a PC, just again to get used to all the ins and outs of the game and being a consistent character. Kind of about it, and whatever else I can get out of it is great. As for the character himself, I want him to change. I don't know if that's going to be good or bad. I don't want to make a set future for him because I don't know anything about Waterdeep or where it's going to go, and that's how I want it to be. So I don't know if he's going to go and be a good guy or a bad guy in the end, or maybe he'll, settle down and find a family after finding somebody he likes along the road, or who knows. I want to leave it very open-ended here at the beginning because, like I said, I don't know what's going to happen. But I want to.
I was going to say, I think that's part of the fun of Waterdeep is there's a lot of ways we could go, and I think it'll be fun to see how your character, just from hearing about it in this opening here, is going to be kind of abrasive in the party, and so there's going to be the rough edges that either get smoothed out while you're in a party setting, or it's going to create that party conflict that which I think in the Tomb of Annihilation, Vinny was that conflict, And eventually, as you see the game progress, Vinny kind of smoothed out.
Yep.
Do you think Jax is going to do that?
I think he could. I think he's going to experience some kind of transition like that. He's not going to be too far on the, oh, I'm going to get along with everybody scale, but he's not going to be an ass to absolutely everybody either. He's going to have some moments. He's going to be a little bit rude. He'll be competitive. Whether or not that leads him to a path of friendship or hatred is just going to depend on how the other characters play, and I want to leave it that way. Again, no expectations no specific expectations going forward.
That's great. That's great. So, I mean, those are all the questions. Is there anything else you want to bring up about Jax? Is there anything else you want to just highlight, hit home, if you were to give your conclusion of Jax?
No, I don't know if there's much else to say. He's a young gnome. He doesn't have much of a family outside of his 2 parents, no brothers, no sisters. He has his friends, but he kept to himself a lot. So he is going to be out of his element, and I'm hoping I can capture that in beginning parts of Waterdeep as he meets these new characters and continues on his first time ever leaving his homeland.
Love it. All right, so are there any questions you have for me going into this?
There's a lot of questions about what the module's going to be, but I think most of that's going to be left to what the overview will teach us when we get there a little bit later. So I don't have any specific questions right now.
And we'll touch on the module at the end.
Yep.
I guess this is a good time. Chat, do you have any questions for Jax or Jax's character? First one is, again, from AK Random Ricker. A question for Blue Viper 85, which is our resident Travis. Resident Hanson brother, by the way. What's your favorite character's piece of artifice so far that he had created? What thing is the... I want to say it's masterwork he hopes to produce one day.
Well, he's got a lot of issues with all of his builds. He's always striving for perfection. If he doesn't win, he doesn't enjoy the build, he probably destroys it. And so at least starts over or uses something else. Anyway, the one thing that he has always kind of held on to is this cube. Like 4 inches by 4 inches on each side. Fits into a bag nicely. And it's called the Cube of Diverse Travel. All it is, it's smooth on every side. You wouldn't know anything was special about it. It's fairly lightweight. But if you know what you're doing, there's a button on a couple of the sides. And one of them makes little propellers come out, and they can fly across the room. Not too much louder than a cheap drone. To hit a different button, and instead of propellers, they become legs, and they can crawl around the floor. It doesn't really do a whole lot besides that, at least not to the naked eye. But he has some tricks up his sleeve with it. I don't know if I want to get into those right now.
Okay.
But mostly it's his favorite, just because of the craftsmanship in it. It's very hard to notice the buttons. It's very obscure if somebody just saw it laying on a table or something. So that's probably his favorite.
How old was Jax?
He is 38 when he left town. I imagine it doesn't take him a year to get there, so I'm kind of assuming he's still 38.
I gotcha. Travis, I'm going to say goodbye to you for a little bit, and we're going to pop over to Chris and Devin.
All right.
Now, gentlemen, what a smooth transition we have.
Ooh, look at that.
That was sexy.
That was hot. I loved it. Guys, we really upped our production value for this. We have 2 of you.
What? Why?
What?
What the?
What?
This is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Okay. Okay, so we are going to start with the top, which is Chris. Chris, give me a quick... What character are you playing?
So I am playing Valerian Alstrom, the halfling rogue, and currently I'm thinking about multi-classing into warlock, just thinking ahead, but right now he's a level 1 rogue. He's about 3'2", 43 pounds, and he's about 40 years old, so he's into adulthood. I mean, halflings live to be about like 150 years old, so he's young on the general scale of halflings, but into his adulthood at 40 years old. He's got an AKA. He goes by the Vulture. on the streets, because he
Ooh.
does have a criminal background, so he's got kind of the alias, and that's kind of what he leaves his mark as the Vulture.
Okay. And Devin, what are you playing?
So I'm playing Templeton. He originally had a last name, and I nixed it. I think I like it better that he doesn't. He's just Templeton. He is a half-orc barbarian. He's 6'4", 300 pounds. He's in his early 20s. I don't think he could properly relay what his actual age is. I'm sure he was probably told it at some point, but he doesn't have the best memory, so he doesn't really remember. But he's in his early 20s. He's very young and inexperienced.
Okay. So we'll head back up top. What's a physical appearance for the Vulture?
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to make, since he's a criminal, I was thinking like, what makes a good criminal? And that's somebody that kind of just blends in. So he has kind of an everyman face. It's kind of tough to pick him out of the crowd. And before I go any further, I do want to compliment our Stonefly on the artwork here. When she showed me Valerian's picture, I was just like blown away. The menacing look that she was able to get in there. But anyways, I had to give props there. But no distinguishing marks or blemishes. Like the one thing he would have is a little earring, one little hoop earring. That's the only kind of embellishment. He does have a good jawline, protruding cheekbones. His hair is a little dirty blonde, some hazel eyes. There's just the idea is that he's easily lost in a crowd. I mean, one, he's a halfling, so he's not very tall, but he looks like all of the other halflings. He just blends in everywhere he goes. Everything is kind of average about his looks. Do you want me to go into like what he wears?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, so he's got this like tan black leather kind of not armor, but just kind of a upper chest piece. It kind of flares down to cover up his thighs. It's stitched together with fine white thread that kind of borders it all the way around. And then he wears a big black kind of scarf that doubles as a hood and a kind of a face mask if he's kind of making a getaway. He's got big black bracers that he wears, leather black bracers on his wrists. And in the middle of each one of those are a white, milky white diamond. Think like obsidian, but white. And they're kind of marquise shaped in those bracers there that he wears on his arms.
Nice.
Usually found within the hood of his scarf is his pet weasel Raffle. He hangs out in there mostly if he's not like out playing around and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's kind of Valerian's appearance.
Love it. What about Templeton?
So with Templeton, I wanted to capture a couple things. Number one, he's just a hulking mass. Not all muscle. He's bulky, muscular, but also kind of fat. I liked the idea of like he has kind of an innocent appearance to him, but there's some serious danger to him underneath all of that. He's clean shaven. He kind of has a vapid, clueless expression, which our Stonefly has captured beautifully. And from looking at him, you get the sense that he's not that intelligent. He's gentle. He has expressive, icy blue eyes with very thin eyebrows. He has a full mouth of human teeth. He never actually got any tusks from the orc side of his family. He's got a bulbous nose. He has a small wisp of white hair just on the top of his head, kind of like a troll doll. His skin's faded green. He enjoys painting his fingernails. So his fingernails are currently like rainbow colored. He wears a white button-down shirt with a black vest, black slacks, and black leather boots. And his socks are rainbow colored. All of these clothes were given to him by Valerian, which we'll get into that in a minute. But Valerian, did he dress me to like so that we kind of match? Like, because I don't know if we did that on purpose or if that was just kind of coincidence.
It was coincidental. Like when we were bringing our two characters together, that was totally like. I remember when I told you I had black leather with white stitching. You're like, oh, sweet, I have white and black. So it's kind of accidental on that side, but I think it's it's a great idea to kind of add to it that Valerian, in their travels together, have slowly pieced together this this makeshift outfit for yourself. They're not necessarily, they don't go together, but through time they've kind of got rid of the old and then grabbed something new. So it does match. And then that Templeton flare with the socks, a rainbow color. That was definitely maybe a weak point in Valerian where he saw that and purchased it for you.
Well, and I think it's also kind of cool that, like, if you have bought me all these clothes, maybe, like, the socks are the one thing I fucking insisted on. Like,
okay.
And,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and, like, you know, you're putting together, like, this image, right, of, like, this big, giant, hulking freak standing behind this halfling. But, like, the one thing I was not going to relent on was the rainbow-colored socks.
So,
Easier battle to give up, like choose your battles kind of thing.
Yeah.
does Valerian pick Templeton as a partner because, one, he's so hulking, two, he could be a protector, and three, he's going to draw more attention?
Yeah, so the way, if we're ready to jump into kind of that part of the backstory.
Should we go through our backstory first?
I think we should, because
break that apart.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, all
I
right.
like that.
So, do you want to go first, or you want me to go?
I think it makes sense if you start and
Okay.
then maybe stop where I come in.
Okay, so Valerian is not a good man. He is kind of left to center on the scale of good and evil. He's a criminal. That's what he did. He has faults. He's unskilled. Like, he's a decent cat burglar, but relatively unskilled. He doesn't really have a trade or anything other than, you know, stealing other people's hard-earned things. He doesn't really produce anything. He just takes petty crimes. And he would make a decent living by stealing people's trinkets and then selling them on the streets. His thing was he would steal during the daytime. He figured most people are gone at their day jobs. He'd go out, steal. Being that everyman, he can kind of blend in. And that's the way he kind of made his money. So he goes on this midnight job. It's somebody who's going to be out and he can get a decent score in the middle of the night, but he has to do it in the middle of the night. So he goes in and he does that. And his wife, he leaves his wife at home. She's pregnant with child. Goes, makes this job, is not gone very long, and he comes back and he finds that his house, the door is open. And he comes back in and he sees Raffle sitting in the middle of their cold, empty bed, kind of freaking out a little bit. He's starting to put two and two together. He sees, well, the door is open. He starts tracking footsteps, and he follows what he thinks are his wife's footsteps out to the middle of this opening in a forest. And there, it's kind of he sees this single solitary moonbeam coming down, hitting this boulder, and he sees what he thinks is his wife out on top of it. And he makes his way over there, and he sees that it is in fact his wife, and she is dead. All the life was drained from her. Not really murdered by like thieves or ruffians or anything, but rather everything about her was kind of drained and just taken from her. Like, just the life force had been kind of removed from her, and she was just really like a shell of a woman at that point. And it was at the feet of her that he prayed for the first time, not really knowing who to pray to or how to pray. But he prayed for the first time, and to try to bring her back, or at the very least be reunited with her. There's nothing in response, and Valerian ended up sleeping at the feet of his wife Kala there outside in the rock. He shivered all night, not because of the cold, but rather the thoughts of what could have been, like this mistake he made. And then that night, as Valerian drifted asleep, unbeknownst to him, Belial, I hope I'm saying that right, Belial, Belial, visited him, and this will be his warlock patron, seeking to be the answer to his, quote, prayer. Belial burned in his wrists the same Marquise diamond shape that he wears on his bracer, burned into his wrist this mark, and now he wears the bracers to cover that up. That's all that the patron did that first night, was just came down and kind of touched him and gave him those burns and those marks, and he wears those to cover him. Belial will obviously come back. But feeling lost without his wife, he went back to what he knows. Like, his life is kind of ruined, so he's going to go and do what he knows. And he heard rumors of this well-to-do butcher in town, and he began casing his home. and he would come by daily at different times in the day, trying to figure out his routine, just to kind of see when the best time to hit him up would be. And no matter when he came to this house, Valerian saw this gigantic half-orc sitting kind of on the street corner, just sitting there doing whatever Devin will describe. Valerian would engage with him in brief nods and some eye contact. One day, Valerian tossed this huge half-orc, a piece of candy, just as he's walking by, a little butterscotch candy, and just moved about his day. The next day, this orc asked for a piece of candy. That was the first time that Valerian heard him speak. Something wasn't quite right with him. He was a little slow, not all there. Something wasn't matching. Valerian gave him another one and asked him to forget that I was ever here, because the next night was the night I was going to make that hit. And I think that's where I'll pause and hand it over to Devin.
Yeah, so Templeton was the product of a night, shared between a cruel orc warrior and a local human girl that he had pillaged after raiding a village. She escaped in the middle of the night while he was asleep, and 9 months later she gave birth to Templeton. He's a green mass with a kind face. Life was anything but easy for Templeton. The people in the village shunned him because of the implications of his birth. He's the child of the orc that overran the village, or one of the orcs that overran the village. And there's the whole issue with him not being that bright. The neighbors kind of referred to him as like touched in the head, and the other kids would call him names, and nobody would have anything to do with him. He was a monster. And his mother, Marie, worked as a clothes washer, just barely making enough to feed the two of them. When he was 19, having no idea what to do with, he's just living there with her, she became ill. And she told Templeton to go to Waterdeep and find some work on the docks. And Templeton's very obedient. He did as he was told. He took a job on the docks. It lasted half a day because a coworker mocked him and hit him with a bottle. And he flew into a rage and broke the man's arm and was fired. So jobless and homeless and not knowing what else to do, his mother told him to come to town and make money. He just kind of sat on the side of the road and contemplated. He didn't want to disappoint his mom by returning home with nothing, so he just sat there. And occasionally somebody would throw him a copper in his way. And not knowing what else to do, he just kind of sat there and collected them. And then one day he had enough. 3 months later, someone brought him a note. Or he collected all the money he could from the alms and sent it to his mother. About 3 months later, a little boy came to him with a note that said his mother had passed. The only kind person he'd ever known was gone. The only person who'd ever been even halfway polite to him was gone. He cried himself to sleep, and the next morning, still just not knowing what to do, he just continued to sit. And the clothes started tattering and becoming worn just from him sitting in the mud. But eventually, from people giving him alms, he saved up enough copper, and he bought some paper and some paints, and he began to draw very simple finger paintings to passersby, pictures of flowers, stick figures of people with smiley faces and suns with smiley faces. He didn't sell that many. One day, a halfling approached him, and the halfling asked him, "Did you draw this? What? It's like a flower?" And Templeton said, "Yep." He said, "Tell you what, I'm a little short on funds at the moment, but I do have some candy. How's about you give me the picture and I give you a piece of candy?" And Templeton asked him what kind. And the halfling replied, "Butterscotch, I think." And Templeton said, "Deal," and the exchange was made. As time went on, the two of them started talking. As Val would walk around this part of town, Templeton was always there selling his finger paintings. And they began to talk. He learned his name was Val. And Valerian was the first person who had said more than 3 words to him in 2 years. And then one night, Templeton's laying in that same spot. He sleeps in the same spot where he sits kind of all day. And he heard a commotion across the street. And I'll turn it back over to Val.
Yeah, so that commotion is me going on this, raiding this butcher's shop. The rear entrance of this butcher shop slammed open, and 2 city constables were wrestling me out of the door. And the constables say, "Caught the vulture red-handed this time. You'll lose your hands for this." And Valerian's responding, "I didn't do nothing." I was hired to do some night work. I was framed. And there's some fear in his voice. And as the guards wrestled Valerian down the street, this is where Templeton comes in. This hulking shadow picked up the pace behind us, and one of the guards got the feeling of being followed and turned around just as Templeton brought, and these are Devon's words, these are great words. Templeton brought his cannonball-sized fist down on the head, killing him instantly. The other guard tried to draw his sword as Valerian stumbled to the ground, watching the massive terror snap the other guard's neck. Templeton stood there breathing heavily, snapped the manacle chain on Val's wrists. Why did you do this? Asked Val suspiciously. Templeton responds,
"You're my friend, and they was hurting you. You have any more of that candy?"
And since then, 2 years later now, we have kind of been tied at the hip in a sense. We're friends. Val would definitely use like air quotes or like a friends question mark at the end of that. He doesn't really know where he sits, but Templeton is definitely.
We're best friends.
Yeah, he portrays that to Templeton for sure. But Val doesn't really know like what void Templeton is filling yet. And I think building this character, that's something that I really want to kind of search out and figure out how Templeton is sitting in his life. And he works for candy, and he likes to play with raffle. He's got these huge fists that when Val's mouth gets him into some trouble, Templeton is usually there to back him up. So I think that's a nutshell of our background, which will make any further information that we give out have it make a little more sense.
Yeah.
I love it. So you guys did say this was in Waterdeep, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can skip that one. Obviously, you're just in Waterdeep and you're kind of just hanging there.
It might be a good question to say, what are we still doing in Waterdeep? Yeah? Would you agree, Chris?
Yeah, so a while ago, Bob, you gave us some families of Waterdeep, and we kind of wrote in that now that Valerian's got Templeton, we kind of took up work for the Rosnar family, and we helped them trade gems. So now we're kind of the liaison in between the Rosnars and whoever they're selling the gems to. So that's kind of what we're still doing in Waterdeep. With that, Valerian has got away from the easy cat burgling and more into just being this runner of gems for the Rosnars.
And what's Templeton still doing in Waterdeep? Just hanging with Valerian?
Templeton is doing whatever Valerian tells him to do.
Whatever goes.
So kind of pulling back the curtain about this, when I approached Chris, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, those are kind of background stories. So Templeton is doing whatever Valerian wants him to do. Templeton has latched onto him as a person who was kind to him when nobody else was. And Templeton is a very true and honorable kind of person. He's willing to do whatever Templeton needs done. His morals are very much around, this is the person who is nice to me, this is the person who I do things for.
Okay.
Yeah, and that, so I guess, talking about like out of character here, that's what's going to be a challenge to me as a player, and I'll save that. You're going to get to that, so I'll save that. Pin that. We'll get back to it.
Okay. So we'll start with Templeton first this time. What traits really define Templeton?
He's very simple. He is not intelligent.
No. Just kidding.
I don't think so. I don't want this to be like, oh, there's some hidden intelligence there. Nobody's just ever gave him a chance. He's not smart. Okay, he had probably some learning deficiencies, but he's loyal to a fault. I would say, one person is
Obviously.
Two people have been nice to him his whole life, his mother and Valerian. And whatever Valerian's motives are, Templeton is, one, not insightful enough to recognize if there is ulterior motives, and two, I don't even know if he would really care. Templeton is very happy to have somebody who is sometimes kind to him and talks to him. So he's loyal. He's very kind. I think outside of whatever goes on with Val, I think he's just a sweetheart. He loves animals. And I think that's kind of his breaking point with Val. If Val ever told him to hurt an animal, I think that would be a hard no. He's not going to do that. He loves animals. He's very childish in his demeanor. I think he just wants everybody to get along and be friends.
Love it. And so what traits really define Val?
So Val, a couple things is the best way to get him to kind of under his skin is tell me he can't do something, like the Marty McFly. Will you call me a chicken? You know, he's going to kind of like, he's going to puff up a little bit. So that's going to get him into some trouble. He's both arrogant and cowardly, especially now that Templeton's with him. He'll talk some mad shit, but then using his halfling nimbleness, he's going to hide behind and underneath Templeton, and you know, take a look at these fists, guys. You know, you don't want to touch me. So both arrogant and cowardly at the same time, and he will put Templeton in harm's way before himself. Like when it comes to fisticuffs, he's definitely going to back off big time and push Templeton out there to the front of the stage. Yeah.
We should also say that you have allowed me to use my fists as weapons, and we are playing it like a Warhammer. So 1d6 one-handed, 1d... Is that right? Warhammer, let me see. 1d8 one-handed, 1d10 two-handed. So my fists, my giant cannonball-sized fists,
gonna be awesome.
are my weapon.
Yeah. Could be great. So yeah, arrogant and cowardly, if that's...
Okay. Love it. So we kind of touched on some of these, any ones that we just maybe didn't. What are some of your flaws? We'll start with Valerian this time.
Yeah, so it's that arrogance. And this is where the challenge for me as a role player is gonna kind of the rubber meet in the road is, can I pull this off? And that's a huge fear of mine that I have, is I have to play an arrogant character. Binks was not. And it was easy for me to play Binks because I just kind of sit back. I act timid. That's easy, right? Nothing's really bad is going to come from you if you just act timid. But being arrogant and being at the center of attention in these social interactions, that's his flaw. That's going to be where I have to shine as a role player. I'm going to try. But yeah, him just being arrogant and just kind of sticking his foot in his mouth a little bit.
Okay, Templeton?
I mean, obviously loyalty to a fault.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Blind loyalty. The blindest of loyalties. Kind of the same way that, so Val's big challenge, or Chris's big challenge in playing Val, is playing an arrogant character, and a character who kind of falls maybe in the middle of the moral spectrum. For me, it is playing a character who doesn't have his own free will. That was kind of what I was shooting for. And so the challenge for me is going to be to sit back and let everybody else kind of push the game and move it forward, whereas I'm going to be supportive. I want to build Val's character, and I want to make Val's character shine, and I want to make the other characters shine as well by being a support kind of character. Definitely loyalty to a fault.
Yeah, I was going to say, playing with you enough, Devin, I know both you and I sitting in the back not taking lead is tough. And every game we've played, we've had to do it.
And I will say that's what I've appreciated about Devin as playing with him, is that he's able to take that lead and kind of okay, so this is how you do it, teaching me how to play essentially. And I appreciate him now kind of taking that back seat and letting some other characters and players kind of not that it would be an issue, but that you're choosing to play a character that is that way. So some other of us are going to have to step up, and I think that's a challenge that we're ready to accept.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it gives Kylie, which unfortunately she's not here tonight, and Travis both the availability to expand them front and center. With Tomb of Annihilation, they were both kind of ancillary characters, is a good way to put it, to an extent, because they didn't start with the original crew, so they maybe didn't feel as tight-knit as everybody else. But hopefully that That's good to go. You guys kind of hit on this already.
We bled into it, yeah.
Yeah. What really sparked the idea for?
Part of it was Xanathar's Guide came out, and so this is like way back. Like we were in Tomb, and halfway through Tomb, I thought of this character. He was actually, well, no, even before that, he was going to be my second character if Binks died. Because I was thinking Binks was going to die early. I'll get Binks out of the way, then I'll play this character that I really want to play. And it was with Xanathar's Guide, and they had the Celestial Pact Warlock. And that's a warlock that is healer-based. So that kind of planted the seed, and then figuring out from there, Kylie's character ended up being a healer. So I kind of swapped and went to Fiend, Pact of the Fiend. Warlock instead, so which is totally cool. Same background story, same everything, but instead of being a healer, now I'm just trying to be a damage dealer. So that kind of started. It was Xanathar's Guide, just having that. Oh, this warlock sounds cool. Warlocks are kind of underplayed, and I think I'll do that. So that was it. That was like the number one point.
You just filled in pieces as
and then
information came, and
and that's usually how I build a character. I'll find a class and subclass that I want to play, and then think of a race, and then build out from there. Very rarely do I start with a background story. I don't know why, but that's just the way it goes. But yeah, so that's how I started.
Templeton. So
I had this idea of tying my character as completely as possible to somebody else's character. As I said just a minute ago, I've always had characters that were very commanding presences. They always had very commanding presence. And so I feel that not by choice, but I make characters that are very much in kind of the center of the group. And I wanted to try something different this time. I liked the idea of my character completely being there as almost like a fleshing out of somebody else's character. I wanted to be an extension of somebody else's character. So, and Chris had been saying in Waterdeep, like, my backup character is Warlock. So I was hoping maybe he was going for something kind of dark. And so I messaged him and I'm like, hey, you ever thought about doing like a shared backstory with our characters? And he's like, what did you have in mind? And we start talking about it, and we start figuring out that like what he's doing with this like criminal background fits perfectly with what I wanted to do, which was I get a lot of my ideas from pop culture. So John Steinbeck, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the book. Help me,
Mice
out,
and Men.
Mice and Men. George from Mice and Men, right? He's this big bumbling idiot, or even like the Looney Tunes cartoons. the big abomination I'm going to love him and hug him, I'm going to call him George, which was again a play on Mice and Men. I liked the idea of this simpleton who gets in with not the wrong kind of person, but the person who's going to use his loyalty as against him and take advantage of that. And so as we started talking, it was like, oh, you're a criminal. That's awesome. I had this idea of playing the muscle for a criminal, the dumb muscle that's standing behind the wisecracking, smooth talking criminal, that is just there to pound stuff into grease spots when it needs to be done. And so as we started talking and exploring this idea, it was like, oh, this is perfect. This is everything that I was hoping this would be. Where I could take my character and just basically attach it to somebody else's and be like, I want your character to shine. I want to be there to make your character deeper and more complex and more compelling, more interesting. And then I want to branch out and do that to the rest of the group. I want to give them something that they can play off of and without ever really taking the spotlight too much, I guess, or being a commanding presence. I want to be in the background painting my nails when it's not my turn to talk. I want to wait for Val to ask me to say stuff. I want to wait for Val to tell me to do something. And when he tells me to do something, I want to do it with the best gusto and excitement that I can.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of how this all kind of started.
Okay. I love it.
I'm I'm gonna call it right now. I'm going out on a limb and saying, like, Devin, you're gonna have the emotional moments to start us off. I think. That's where I'm thinking.
It could happen. Oh, Travis just posted in our private chat, Mimsy from South Park. He's not wrong. But no, I agree. I'm definitely going to be playing in more of the heartfelt side of things, because he is very childlike, and he wants everyone to be friends. I think that's probably, I will be playing in that realm more than I will be in the badass realm, or the, I don't know.
Yeah.
The dramatic realm.
Right. Okay, so next question. What pitfalls do you want to really avoid with these characters? And I think this is going to be tough for both of you.
There are many.
But we'll start with you first, Devin.
Okay, so number one, if you've ever seen Tropic Thunder, and when Robert Downey Jr.'s character says you never go full retard, and I apologize, I'm just quoting the movie.
Go in the movie.
I'm quoting the movie. I do not want this character to be a joke. 100%. This character is not there to be the stupid thing that everybody makes fun of. And if that happens, I'm killing him off. I'm just saying that. Like, his simplicity is a facet of his character. It is not who he is. He is not a caricature. And so that's a pitfall for me. And I think maybe even for the group too. Mm-hmm. Because, he's going to do some things that are kind of funny sometimes, and that's fine. But what I don't want him to do is become like the butt of jokes, or have his simpleness be the thing that defines him. I really want to push myself as a role player. I want to play a character that is multifaceted, that has a lot of flaws, that isn't easy, and so for me, that's a tightrope to walk, of not letting his simpleness be a crutch for me. I'm not going to be playing this up for laughs just because he's simple, or not that bright.
Right.
And it's going to be hard for me to. It's also gonna be hard for me to take the back seat. I've said it before. I don't do it on purpose. I just, I just do it. I'm just playing my characters as I would if I was talking to my friends.
Right.
In my own life, I do this a lot with my friends group. I'm kind of the guy at the front, leading the pack kind of thing. And so for me to force myself into a position where I'm taking a back seat is going to be a challenge for me.
Well, okay. And I think to kind of help you out in that, what I'm thinking in my headspace with Valerian is like, he might throw you under the bus, make you the butt of jokes, but deep down, like, and this is where the whole story arc is gonna hit, I think, is like he cares about Templeton. Otherwise, he wouldn't keep him around. He wouldn't be an asset to him if there wasn't some deep down connection. So that's gonna keep it from being that the butt of the joke. And being like you said, going full retard.
That's not.
Pitfall with Valerian, I think, is becoming. I don't want him to be the game breaking asshole or the party breaking asshole. Like, we've talked about that before. Like, how evil can you play before your party just says, "Hey, screw you. We wouldn't associate with you." Right. So I gotta find where that threshold is and learn how to dance in and out of that and make it interesting and fun, and that's really going to challenge me as a player, and I'm looking forward to it. I want to take that step as a player, otherwise I wouldn't make this kind of challenging character. But I think that's going to be tough for me, but knowing the group, knowing the people I play with is going to help. Knowing that we've gone through a campaign together, like, I'm okay with going out on a limb with you guys. I feel safe. I feel comfortable. I think I'm ready for the challenge. But yeah, being too much of an a-hole, or on the other side of that is not playing up to that asshole in this character. Like me as Chris being too timid and not stepping up and playing that character. So that, yeah.
I think it's kind of awesome that, like, I think this is going to play out where, like, you're my backbone and I'm your conscience kind of thing, Like, if we kind of have shared emotions, I think we're gonna see. I think we could see that happen.
Yeah.
At some point, where it's like you want to do something wrong, and I'm gonna talk you out of it, or somebody does something not nice to me, and I stand up to them, or something. Something like that. But
you guys kind of answered the last
Yeah,
one too.
we did.
I mean, you guys did a good job. It's much, much appreciated on my end. So, are there any questions that you guys have for me that won't be covered in the Waterdeep portion?
I have one. This may not be covered. It may. If it is, then we can hold off. But because my background is a criminal, I get like a criminal contact. So I'd like to know, like, working for the Rosnar family, can my criminal contact be within that family? And that's who I get some of my underground information. That's how I get the scuttlebutt on the streets,
Yeah, I think so.
So that's my biggest question is that.
Yeah, I think that would fit mechanically into the game because, and we'll talk about the families here in a little bit.
Okay.
Each family kind of has their own, good and bad, if you will. But it would make sense that if you've worked for them long enough that you have kind of an agent that will assist you in what you need. Devin?
Nothing for me. I think I'm good. It would be nice if you could tell me. I was looking at the map and I was trying to figure out a small city where Templeton could maybe be from. Okay, let me ask you this: does the game take place completely in Waterdeep?
100%.
Okay, then never mind. Don't need to know. It's a small village outside Waterdeep.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so there are two questions for you guys.
Yeah.
Would you label yourselves as bandits? And this comes from Demon Lord Nem.
I think bandits, no. I think thief, yes. At least early.
What about Templeton?
Like
would Templeton label himself?
I think the correct term at this point is fencer. I think we're into acquiring stolen goods from other thieves and selling them to the Rosnar so that they can... Because it showed, I know we'll talk about in a minute, but the Rosnars, they deal in gems. That's what they kind of deal in jewelry. And so I think we're fencers. I think we don't do the active thieving any longer. We take in what other people have stolen.
Okay.
And then give that to the Rosnars. But I think, now I'll say this too, Templeton, I don't think he's a thief at all.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I don't think he's ever stolen a thing in his life. He's the ever looming shadow behind Val. Val has stolen stuff.
Oh yeah.
Templeton has watched him steal stuff. Templeton has made sure that he gets out of sticky situations. Templeton has never stolen a thing in his life.
Okay, I like it.
And I think, bandit to me insinuates there's some muscle in there, or the act of hurting somebody physically, where like fencer or thief, Val's not interested in like hurting anybody physically. Monetarily, yeah, of course he'll take what he needs. That's like stealing a loaf of bread to feed your family kind of thing. But as far as like hurting people just to hurt people, no, I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Next question comes from AK Random Ricker. So, as locals, you guys have any other friends you've left by the wayside? And do you guys have a favorite bar or tavern?
Yeah. So we actually talked about that. Like, we kind of hang out in the Yawning Portal. We are not really like big shots there, but we do kind of hang out. That's where the heavy hitters are going to be. That's where the information is going to be passed around. So we have talked about that. Like, that's kind of where we hang out. And
I know at one point, and I don't know if this is not canon, because we have shared canon and I can't remember. I know at one point we kind of talked about that maybe our characters are like well known in this portion of Waterdeep as like if you've ever seen The Godfather Part 2, when the original Godfather, so like when they do the flashback to Vito's as a young guy, when he's like walking down the streets and they're just grabbing fruit off of people's stands and everyone's like, oh, hey, good to see you, Godfather. Like, we kind of talked about like it'd be cool if like our characters maybe had a little bit of notoriety as working for the Rosnars, and like, not that we're like, kings of Waterdeep or anything like that, but like in our little section of the Yawning Portal where we hang out, we're known as like these are the guys who work for the Rosnars.
So
you know, like they watch out for the locals, kind of.
Maybe
thing.
the good question is the Yawning Portal the place for that to happen? As like a level 1 character, I imagine you know we're pretty low on the totem pole, so maybe there's another bar.
Yeah, that's where
that we can be up higher up in status where that stuff can happen. And I'm totally cool with like that being the bar. It doesn't have to be the Yawning Portal, right? It's cool.
Yeah,
but a place where we can come in and get what we want.
I would ask that it is a different place because Yawning Portal, you know, y'all are level 1 characters, so you guys, you know, it mechanically fits that, you know, you're not that big of a deal because
I have 9 hit points.
You start scrapping with somebody, you're gonna die. So maybe if we choose a bar outside of Waterdeep, there's a billion, and you can just pick whichever. It doesn't matter. I think that'd fit better. Okay. Anybody?
But the second half of that question was, do we have anybody we left behind? Val was pretty close to his wife. So the Rosnar would be the criminal contact there, and the Rosnar family would be the only person other than Templeton, really. He's got some tertiary family that is out, not in Waterdeep, which I haven't written a backstory for, but there are people there, but they're not in Waterdeep.
So. Yeah, and I mean, Templeton had 2 people in his life, and the only one that's still living is Val. So there's not any locals. I think so. Maybe to kind of scale in the sense of like we're good for the community. Maybe there's like just a family or 2 that like we try and help support a little bit. You know, maybe at like Templeton's insistence or something like that. Maybe that's a better scope for a level 1 character. You know, there's like a widowed woman and a child that we make sure has bread or something like that.
Perfect.
But so, yeah, that would probably be the only thing I could think of is if there was like a local small family that Templeton had. Maybe it reminds him of his mom and himself had taken an interest in. He's insisting on making sure that they have food to eat.
So, Brewhammer, you 2 are the only 2 in the group that know each other. We'll get to that in a second. I do find this comment interesting from Brewhammer. Interesting that you guys are going to be locals in Waterdeep. You know, I do feel like a lot of crews kind of are new
traveling
to
adventurers.
Waterdeep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be interesting. So do you guys have any lasting impressions you want to give real quick before we bring Travis back in?
I will touch on what AK Random Wrecker said in the chat was having ties to the community create awesome moments of roleplay. And I think that's totally true. Like, that's kind of why I wanted to be involved in Waterdeep, was just to have those points of contact where you can immediately riff off NPC because you have some sort of background story with them. And having Templeton at the side, I think that's just going to make it even better and easier transition into Waterdeep. I'd hate to be like a wide-eyed halfling coming into Waterdeep for the first time. You know, not that there's anything wrong with that. That's just we were that in Chult. I don't want to be that in Waterdeep. Yep. I want to be kind of, I know the streets of Waterdeep,
and
to a certain extent.
To piggyback off of that, like Waterdeep is the perfect setting to be a local who is lost as fuck. It is the New York City of Faerun, and it's the largest city in Faerun, isn't it?
I believe so.
I'm doing a bunch of reading on the background of Waterdeep in my spare time to prep for this, so that I understand Waterdeep. I want to be as close to being a true local as I can be at this point, and it will be super. Like, I love the idea of this is all I know. That little town where I grew up, and then Waterdeep. Waterdeep is my world, but it's huge, and there's so much to learn and know about this city that, like, there's like this weird thing going on with like the macro and the micro of a world. It's awesome to hear that we're going to be in Waterdeep the whole time. I was kind of hoping that was the case. Like, I like the idea of being buried into the city.
The pockets of Waterdeep are going to be so fun to explore.
I agree, and I think this is an appropriate time to bring everybody back.
Travis,
get his ass in here.
So welcome back, Travis.
Good to be here.
Would it be? Could we talk about our characters together for a minute?
No, that's inappropriate.
Whatever.
That is not what this is for.
Are you playing the Unearthed Arcana?
Yes, I am.
Nice. I am super excited to watch this be played.
So
I am too.
That is
recently updated.
Yeah, that is a
Yes.
fair thing to bring up. Unearthed Arcana yesterday came out with the recently updated Artificer, and Travis will be playtesting that as we go through. So there's a homebrew one, there's the original that was released like a couple years ago. This will be the most current released version.
Yes, it is.
I'm excited
before-
to see where that goes.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to have a lot of fun with it, I hope. Anyway, and if not, that's kind of the point of a playtest. You find out you don't like it and move on to something else somehow.
And you kill your character.
Or multi-class, or who knows. We'll see what happens. Maybe he might get killed by Templeton. We'll see.
And so one other question for everybody before we get into Waterdeep. Does anybody, so Travis, I think you kind of answered this. Does anybody else have a trinket that they've picked out?
So there are two things, and I don't know which one is going to be more that's going to shine in roleplay yet. But there are two things. One, he has a woodworking tool set, so he can carve like small figurines. That's kind of an homage to me as a real person. I like to carve wooden spoons in some of my off time. So I was like, woodworking, let's have him do that. We'll throw that in there. So we'll see if that comes out. If it does, it'll be something cool. Maybe that's something I do in our downtime as I carve little figurines for Templeton to play with. That might be my trinket. But my like spell casting arcane focus is going to be those bracers, those black bracers that I wear with the white diamonds in them. That's going to be something that I protect because they cover up my scars, and two, they're just kind of cool looking. So yeah, one of those two things. We'll see.
Okay.
So as I mentioned in my backstory, Templeton paints his nails kind of just obsessively. He has this painting kit that he used to make money while he was on the streets. That's his trinket. He has a paint set that he sometimes uses for finger painting, but most of the time he just enjoys painting his nails different colors.
It's gonna be fun.
Good deal. All right. Travis, I guess I was one more. Is your character more the silent type or the quiet lurker?
He's kind of neither. He will probably start off as the quiet lurker a little bit, as he kind of finds his groove in this new town, or new world, rather. Once he gets comfortable, he's going to be kind of more outgoing, more I don't know what charismatic, but he'll definitely be partaking in all sorts of things around the world, conversation, just finding things to do, and probably causing some mischief here and there. Maybe nothing too bad, but he'll be having some fun at least.
Love it.
I do think that as any good toddler would, I'm going to ask you so many questions about whatever it is that you're building. So just be prepared for that.
Yes.
Honestly, that's what I'm hoping for, because that's going to help me be more creative with things.
Okay, so I think that kind of covers it for questions, Q&A. Let's jump into what the module will look like. So I've read ahead quite a bit. It's easier to explain it, whereas Tomb, and it's going to be a good juxtaposition of the two. Tomb was a much more combat, dungeon delve heavy module. I feel like Waterdeep is going to be a very roleplay heavy module. There's probably not going to be a ton of combat. There's probably not going to be a ton of dungeon diving. I'm not sure if we're going to take this to the Mad Mage yet. So I do have that module. We didn't like Tomb that much, so you can read our go through our reaction. But we didn't like the dungeon delving part of Tomb of Annihilation because it was a grind. So this will not be that. This will be a sandbox to an extent. There does get to be a point where there's a timer situation. So, there's at the we'll say there's 4 chapters. The first couple, you're going to be sandbox. Then it gets into a timer situation, which, you can put it what it is. But the module will be very different than Tomb of Annihilation, and I think it's going to help our group as a whole shine because that's what we do very well. I could say, and for me, not from a media standpoint, from a dungeon master standpoint, and hopefully from you guys as a character standpoint, my favorite moments of Tomb of Annihilation were the heavy roleplay moments. And we talked about some of these before, but Travis, you brought up the Oni. That was one of my favorites. And this is going to be that in its entirety. So it's going to give a lot of range for your characters to grow. It's going to give a lot of spotlight to the characters that want to be in the front. And hopefully it'll give enough roleplay moments for the characters that want to be at the back. So it'll have a nice breakdown for each.
I was just thinking we're gonna have to find a new fire side, because in Tomb it was always getting down for the fire before the night. We'd have this great roleplay moment. What's going to be our new?
We saved it for that. It was like, okay, campfire time. Let's bust out the RP.
We know it's time to roleplay.
Remind me again. Is it levels 1 through 5?
Yeah. So the target's 1 through 5. We'll see where it goes from there, and we don't know the next step. So I'll just get that out of the way now. We do have a 5th member. She's unfortunately extremely busy with personal life, so she'll be here for the start of it. We're going to catch up her session 0 maybe Thursday before the podcast or wherever we can fit it in next week. But we will have a 5th character, and I'm excited. So any questions about the module that I can tell you now without giving away?
4th character. You don't count.
4th character. Yes, you're right. Thank you. A 5th member, a 4th character.
So I'm leading this question because I already know the answer. I know that we talked about where this stands as far as the end of Tomb of Annihilation. Where, as a timeline, where do we stand?
That's a good question.
Is this even on the same timeline?
So Cholt, which is where Tomb of Annihilation, and this is kind of a fun, I was going to sprinkle this in. It is a kind of fun homage to the Tomb of Annihilation, is that this will be in the same, timeline history. It's about 50 years later. So the events of the party before, that does have an impact in Waterdeep, and it's 50 years after the Soulmonger has been destroyed, because Cholt is an island right off the Sword Coast in Faerun. So
awesome.
Well, I was thinking it'd be kind of cool to read us the infractions and the punishments.
I have that.
If you have that handy, that would be cool to kind of help us get into the mindset of what maybe you can and cannot get away with in Waterdeep.
Yeah,
what is a punishable offense?
We'll go over that with the city. So what do you think about the module as a whole? No? All right. No. Let's jump into Waterdeep. So Waterdeep is one of the biggest cities in Faerun, right? So everybody's heard about it. It's on the Sword Coast. The race breakdown of Waterdeep, because some of you guys might be kind of looked at a little, side-eyed or mean-mugged at a few times. But the race breakdown, humans 64%, dwarves 10%, elves 10%. Halflings 5%, half elves 5%, gnomes 3%, half orcs 2%, other 1%. And it's a population of about 100,000. So put it where it is. Basics of Waterdeep. I don't know if this is the right word, but the name of, and maybe I'm going to butcher the hell out of this. The name of people in Waterdeep are Waterdavians. Pretty much anything in Waterdeep can be sold or bought. Anything you can think of, there's somebody out there for it. So this is kind of what keeps you encased in the module that we're in. So you have no need to leave Waterdeep. Waterdavians hold adventurers in a high regard. So you guys are, if you're going to be adventurers, or you have stories, or you have, and maybe this Templeton and Valerian, maybe this leads into your high status in a bar.
Yeah, I could totally see Valerian being the orator of a story, as Templeton maybe like bumbling through or kind of acting it out a little bit. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you guys maybe, in your own little circle, you guys are kind of like, oh, let's gather around. It's story time.
I imagine Templeton probably is like pushing people out of the way to sit down in front of Valerian.
Okay,
like, all right. Like story time. Hell yeah! Like just
your crowd control.
Yeah.
There are some of the most esteemed citizens in Waterdeep that were former adventurers. And kind of jumping into there, so we'll go over the noble families of Waterdeep. And so this is well known to everybody. There's House Amkithra. I'm going to butcher all these. I'm terrible. Are a Tetherian family that specializes in horse breeding and training, cattle ranching, winemaking, and weaponsmithing. The family motto is "We trample our troubles." So the family has a large villa in the North Ward on the east side of the high road between Hissantiers Street and Tarneth Street. Okay, then there's House Margister. The Margisters are an Eluskan family whose business interests lie in land-based shipping and bulk goods trading. The house also has a quiet history of wizardry. The family motto is "Nothing is beyond our grasp." The Margisters' family estate is situated between Stabbed Sailor Alley and Shattercrock Alley in the North Ward. House Fyland. The Fylands are a Tash-Latar family that captures and sells monsters. Monsters that can be trained as monsters that can't be trained as pets or guard beasts are sold to arenas or harvested for their meat, bones, and skins. The Fylands sponsor adventuring parties and monster hunting expeditions, and their motto is "What you fear, we master." House Fyland has an estate on Copper Street, west of the high road between Joltoon Street and Trader's Way in the North Ward. House Rosnar, once banished from Waterdeep for smuggling, slavery, and other crimes, this Tetherian house has returned and is trying to overcome its dark past and disgraceful reputation by focusing on legitimate business ventures, such as winemaking and gem trading.
Legitimate.
The family motto is "We fly high and stoop swift." Rosnar Villa.
High, bro. Sorry.
Rosnar Villa is situated on Thunderstaff Way between Copper Street and Shield Street in the Sea Ward, west of the High Road. So those are the main families, and some of you do have some ties in there, and it'll play into the game. There's guilds within Waterdeep, so this is kind of a fun thing that we could go through. I'm not going to read all of them, but some of the top ones are Baker's Guild, Launderer's Guild, Carpenters, Roofers, Plaisterers, League of Basket Makers, Cellarers and Plumbers, League of Skinners and Tanners, Coopers, Loyal Order and Street Laborers, Council of Farmer Grocers, Master Mariners. So anything you really want, there's probably a guild for it. I mean, the list is ridiculously long, and I can post it in our Discord if you guys are interested in the chat. It's League of Extraordinary Basket Makers. Nice. So yeah, that is. This just adds to the flavor of Waterdeep, and it brings the life to the city that maybe some of these other small places don't. Before we get into the legal code, so there's a pretty sweet handout for that too. Where this module will start is the Yawning Portal. There's so much to the Yawning Portal that they even have their own little handout. I can post it in our Discord if you guys are interested in the in the handout. But the Yawning Portal is so full of life and flavor, and that's kind of why being recognized there as a level 1 character is where I would say, maybe not. Maybe you guys, and you could, I might get away with, you could try and talk a big game there, which, you roll high enough bluff checks or deceptions or whatever, it could be fun. Yawning Portal is no place to really mess around. So the Yawning Portal is a famous inn and tavern located in the Castle Ward of Waterdeep. Adventurers can meet all sorts of colorful characters here. The place is a stone building with a slate roof and several chimneys. Most of the ground floor is taken up by the tavern's common room, which contains a 40-foot diameter open well, actually the outer shell of a sunken stone tower that descends 140 feet to the first level of Undermountain, the sprawling dungeon under Waterdeep. A rope and pulley mechanism is used to lower adventurers into the well and hoist them out. The upper floors of the Yawning Portal contain comfortable, nicely appointed rooms for guests. Durnan, the proprietor, charges standard prices for food and lodging there. So, this is there's its own book, Tales from the Yawning Portal, that has a ton of fun adventures in there, and it's a place where people come to chat and talk and live up. So that's where we're going to start the adventure. So think about, as you guys move into the module, think about why you're there. What would bring you to the Yawning Portal with your characters? But so some of the fun stuff with the actual module itself, it gives you a handout of crime and punishment in Waterdeep. So punishment for a crime can include one or more of the following based on the nature of the crime, who or what the crime is committed against, and the criminal record of the convicted: death, exile for a number of years or summers, flogging, a set number of strokes, hard labor for a period of days, months, or years, depending on the seriousness of the crime. So they don't mess around.
You know, it's funny, coming out of Cholt, I was like, these fuckers are ridiculous with their punishments. And then you sent us the goddamn list of things that you can get into in Waterdeep. And I was like, oh, goddamn, we should have stayed in Cholt.
So, yeah. Imprisonments in the dungeons of Castle Waterdeep for a period of days, months, depending on the seriousness of the crime. A fine, which is pretty common, payable to the city. Inability to pay the fine leads to imprisonment and or hard labor. Damages payable to the injured party or victim's kin. Inability to pay damages lead to imprisonment and or hard labor. An edict forbidding the convicted from doing something in violation of an edict can result in imprisonment, hard labor, and or a fine. So some of the crimes: assaulting, impersonating a lord, punishable by death. Assaulting. Assaulting or impersonating an official or noble, flogging, imprisonment up to a 10-day, and fine up to 500 gold pieces. So all of this is so much depth to this module that wasn't in Cholt. A lot of Cholt was kind of ad-libbed. You just knew you don't mess around. But some of the highlights: murder of a lord, official, or noble is death. Bribery or attempted bribery of an official, exile up to 20 years. And fine up to double the bribe amount.
That one scares me. Yes. Because that's something you could totally do. And just...
hope you get a high roll.
Don't fail me now.
That's the ultimate butthole pucker.
Yeah. So crimes against the city, some of these are fun. Espionage, Valerian. Death. Death or permanent exile. Fencing stolen goods.
Oh, here we go.
Fine equal to the value of the stolen good and edict. Forgery of an... That's not bad. That's not bad. Right. Forgery of an official document. Flogging and exile for 10 summers. Hampering justice. Templeton. Fine up to 200 gold pieces and hard labor up to a 10-day. Littering. Fine up to 2 gold pieces. Poisoning a city well. Death. So I'm gonna post.
So that's the rule that somebody made because that actually happened sometime in the past. Like, you know how every city's got like the rule that's like, look, some asshole did this, so now it's a law. That one is that's the Waterdeep asshole law.
Yeah, I agree. So I'll post these in our Discord again. If you want to join our Discord and see some of these, you can read through the whole list. There's a link down below. So are there any questions? I mean, Waterdeep has such a rich history that I'm going to ask if you guys want to know the history of Waterdeep. There's an amazing lore, a Wikipedia page on it that's just full of stuff if you want.
Question is, are we all... Session 1, we're starting in the Yawning Portal.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so we need to know why we are there.
Yes.
Okay. What season did we choose?
Oh, yeah.
I thought we chose winter.
Okay, well, we didn't talk about it. I don't think we talked about it.
We talked about it so long ago.
Yeah. I think we chose winter, and then, Bob, you said that it may not be totally fulfilling.
Yeah, Random Record actually just asked that too. What time of year are we starting in?
It's whatever you guys want.
I don't care.
So
we said winter. That was what we originally had said.
The good and I think I said that because I like the headspace of walking around in snow falling down around Waterdeep. But if that's not going to be the best story or the best villain or whatever, I'm fine with whatever. But
it's
really up to you guys. I mean,
I say we stick. We said winter. That was our first. Everybody agreed, like right off the gate. Winter in Waterdeep sounds awesome.
If for some reason you guys don't want to do so without giving away too much, there's a villain per flavor. I don't see why I couldn't, mix and match whatever, because it just seems silly to. We've always been into. We're not gonna just let this, be so railroaded that we can't change it how we want to.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find it. There's a very good season breakdown. Travis, what's your question?
I see that the race breakdown has gnomes at 3%. Can I, Jax as a gnome, expect to be looked at differently, or is everybody pretty well welcome here, even at that low?
I think everybody would be welcome here to an extent, because the Yawning Portal, again, the Yawning Portal brings so much to the table, and it brings such a wide variety. Yeah, so the winter... Go ahead, Devin.
I am relishing the idea of being the lowest minority, and I hope that that's played to its extremes of nobody likes the fucking orcs.
Well, I mean, I'm not an orcist or anything, so it's a hard stretch for me as the DM. Kidding. So, winter. Waterdavian winters are harsh. As snow piles up around the city and ice fills the harbor, trade grinds to a halt, and the city seals its gates. Citizens willing to brave the cold still gather in local taverns and fest halls, but few venture outside the city walls. And I guess I could read the other ones. So spring in Waterdeep, early spring tends to be cold and damp. Misty rain falls for days on end. It's common for fog to settle at night and last through the day. As the weather improves, the city attracts more visitors, and the streets become increasingly crowded as summer approaches. Summers in Waterdeep are quite comfortable, and it's a great time for citizens and visitors to congregate outside. The markets, the markets are busier than at any other time of year. Sometimes the warm air pushes up from the south and settles in the valleys north and east of the city. This air gets trapped, creating a hot spell that might last for days or weeks. Activity in the city slows to a crawl since Waterdavians are unaccustomed to such heat. Autumn. Throughout autumn, wagon loads of food arrive in Waterdeep from outlying farms. Without this bounty, the city folk would starve during the winter. Cold, howling sea winds remind Waterdavians that winter is coming. Yeah, so, I mean, if you guys want to decide differently as you read those...
I have an image in my head of Templeton in, like, the biggest fur coat he can find.
I feel like...
I
was going to say, I feel like we should probably review those again with Kylie, maybe on her session 0.
Does she even work here?
Decide as a group. But I'm pretty cool. I kind of like summer a little better from the sound of it, but I'm going to have fun with it. What would you?
Yeah. Rude. Should have been here, Kylie. It's your fault. Kidding. All right.
It's my day off.
I wasn't even supposed to be here today. All right. So does anybody have any other questions? Any other questions in the chat? Because I think this has been a pretty fun session 1 or session 0.
Yeah. I guess I'll have a comment on tonight. I'm so glad that we did this. I feel like comforted going into this. I feel like ready to go. I like knowing a little bit about all of our characters, and I am so excited, guys. As much fun as we had in Tomb of Annihilation, and I think it's just going to be like an exponential more amount of fun here in Waterdeep.
To lift up the curtain, when we started doing Tomb of Annihilation, it was like, I don't think we knew what we were doing. I'll just straight out the gate, like no clue.
Still don't know what I'm doing.
Well, we took what we've decided to kind of as a group. It's like Waterdeep is our chance to really do this the streaming side of things right. Like good graphics, original artwork, excellent storytelling right off the bat, So I'm so excited for this. I've been looking forward to this for months, I would say. I was over Tomb for a long time, and just as the production side of things, I'm loving how this is all coming together, and I'm so excited for what comes in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I remember we thought we were going to finish Tomb in November.
Yep.
Like we had talks like it could be November, mid-November, late November, and it just kept going and going.
Well, we were like, let's be finished by the time Dragon Heist comes out.
Yeah,
Comes out.
I remember.
And,
Yeah,
What was that? April? No, that was like
September. Or
Yeah.
October. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I will say, throw some praise out to the Dad Bod crew. Thank Devin for the awesome graphics here. Thank Kylie for the awesome artwork, for our character artwork. Bob putting the OBS together and running all that stuff. Devin, or not Devin, Travis.
Double Devin.
There's a V. It was the V.
Tech support, Travis.
Tech support Travis, updating Reddit and taking care of that stuff. You guys are doing great. It looks so awesome. I'm watching Twitch right now. It just looks freaking awesome, guys. I'm so happy.
But I do want to say, setting up for the session 0 was kind of weird because every session 0, like when you do your research and like what are good, compelling questions to ask, every session 0 is like, how do I DM? How do we fit as a group? And it's like, dude, we've already been playing for half a year together, a year. We don't need any of that. So let's dive into the characters. And I think, we combined, brought all of these questions together, and it turned out really good.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited.
All right, so that's gonna end it here. Thanks everybody in the chat for the questions, hanging out with us as we go over our characters, and as the group gets to know each other's characters. So we've all written the backstories, but seeing it and hearing your actual emphasis on it is just great. I do want to say off the top, follow us wherever you want, at Dad Bod Dnd, Twitter, Instagram, whichever is your fancy. If you want, we had a bunch of people join Discord this afternoon, so awesome. If you guys need some new dice, you can go ahead and click the Skull Splitter dice link below. Use DadBod promo code, one word, no spaces. Get you 10% off. And if you haven't yet. And there's Inked in Ignorance with his 100 bits. Appreciate it as always. If you haven't yet, follow us. We will be starting Dragon Heist March 15th. Obviously, we do this on Twitch, but it will be on podcast format. It will be on YouTube format. Yep. And, interact with us and hang out with us in our Discord and talk about the sessions and whatever's going on.
March 15th. Tell your friends. Bring them along.
Yeah, for that, we don't pay for advertising, so it's all by word of mouth. So if you guys can tell your friends, get some hype going for the 15th, that would be amazing. And we'll talk to you then.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Love you.